Hello my fellow Christian fiction lovers, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be giving you some books, not giving you, just sharing with you some books that have either convicted me or challenged my faith, changed how I thought about certain things. You know, basically books that have really impacted me on like a spiritual level, like dealing with my Christian faith. All of these books are Christian fiction. Yeah, they just really impacted me in one way or the other, and I don't know, I feel like I love to hear how books impact other people on a deeper level, so I thought I would give you some of mine. So the first book that comes to mind when I think of a book that has convicted me is Voice of the Wind, or just like the whole Mark of the Lion trilogy in general. I absolutely loved the first two books in this series. The main character, Hadassah, her faith was honestly one of the best fictional faiths I have ever read, and there were multiple points when I was reading this book where I kind of like would stop and really think about everything she was going through and how she was so close to God through it all. And like, there were times that I prayed like, God, I want a faith like that, like make me like her, honestly, because she was just so impacting to those around her and to her own self, and she didn't even realize like how much her close faith with God, her close relationship with God, like really affected everyone in her life, whether she realized it or they realized it or not. So yeah, this book definitely convicted me and challenged me to like be a better Christian and have stronger faith in that sense. Next up is The Face by Angela Hunt. I have this little tiny copy that I actually got at a thrift store for like 50 cents, and I didn't really think that this book was going to like challenge me like the way it did. This book made me really ponder the way that I look at people with deformities, like especially facial deformities, and not being so quick to judge and realizing that they are people who have a mind and a heart and soul behind their face. This book is kind of hard to explain, so I feel like that's all I'm gonna give you, but this book definitely changed the way that I thought about people with disabilities or deformities or anything like that. And I will say that the main character, though she does have a disformed face in this book, honestly, there were so many times that I forgot about it because she had such a strong personality and was just like any other young woman that you would meet, with like the sense that she has a personality and thoughts and that kind of thing. So yeah, loved the way this book changed my thinking pattern. Next up is a really popular one that I have a whole video on, and that is The Hiding Place by Corrie. This book always kind of convicts me in the sense of I need to be way more grateful for the life and privileges I have, because yeah, she had it way worse, and she stuck it out through her faith and has impacted and changed so many people's lives for the better. This is not a fictional book. It's written like a memoir, autobiography kind of thing. I've read it 3 or 4 times, and every single time I have like stopped and prayed and just thanked God for everything in my life, like down to the fact that I have clean edible food to eat because she and the women around her in the concentration camps did it. And the way she writes about it doesn't guilt you, but it definitely makes you aware of how blessed you are. I have a whole video going into more thoughts on The Hiding Place, and I will link that in the description if you want to hear me talk about it more. So the next book is The Atonement Child by Francine. This book I read more towards the beginning of when I really started to get into Christian fiction, and so I hadn't read too many books that dealt with a lot of really hard-hitting topics like abortion. And I think that's why this book still sticks out to me, because it was really one of the first times I had ever dealt with something so controversial, dealt in such a wonderful way in fiction. This book obviously is written with the intent, like being pro-life, like it comes to that conclusion, but the way it gets there makes you realize that it is not so black and white for everyone as Christian culture would like you to think it is. It's not as simple as saying no to abortion, because there's so much more going on in every person's life, like who's going through that kind of situation. So I loved it. I loved how the book not only dealt with the main character who becomes pregnant through unfortunate circumstances, but it also goes into the mind of her mother and her grandmother, and how abortion has kind of been a curse on their family throughout the generations, like the effects of abortion. And I really want to reread this book kind of someday soon, because it just had so many good nuggets of wisdom that I want to go and unpack even better again. Next is another kind of popular one, and that is The Shack by William Paul Young. This isn't kind of popular, this is very popular. I don't know what I'm saying. Despite its shortness, this book radically changed the way I thought about God and how he relates to us. I read this book with my sister. We read it out loud to one another, and that was a very spontaneous decision. I was literally in her bedroom and I had picked this up and I was like, hey, do you want me to read the first chapter of this to you? And she was like, sure. And we read it together, and I'm so glad we did, because both of us really got so many important life lessons from this book. And I know for me, it just really changed the way that I see God interact with me on a personal level. And obviously he is supreme and, God overall, but he is also a super personal being that meets us where we are and, becomes the source of love that we need from him, if that makes sense. And there were so many different lines of dialogue that God, the character in this book, spoke that I was like, that was written just for me. That was not written for the main character. That was written for me. So yeah, I loved the way this book convicted me and changed the way I thought about my relationship with God. Definite recommend for everyone. Okay, and then finally we have another Francine Rivers book / series, and that is the Lineage of Grace series. This series was, I think it was the first true Christian fiction that I really ever read. One of the first. And this book, this series is 5 novellas that follows the 5 different women mentioned in the lineage of Christ in Matthew chapter 1. And I absolutely loved the way that Francine Rivers unpacked all of their stories and made them so real and personal, and just really reminds the reader that you think you are so small in the grand scheme of things, but God is using you for a greater purpose and a greater good, and he's using your mistakes and your sin even to accomplish his purpose. And that's really highlighted in all of these stories. I feel like all of the women kind of just feel like they are nobody and God doesn't even see me. They're part of the lineage of Christ, and obviously, except for Mary, none of them even knew that until they got to heaven, and I just find it so beautiful. Those are off the top of my head, when I looked at my shelf and was like, what books convicted me when I read them? Those are the ones that I pulled off. I could do a whole video on books that have taught me lessons about my faith. I think this one specifically, I focused on books that have challenged me, changed the way I thought, and convicted me, I guess. But I would consider conviction, those 2 other things, the description of conviction. But let me know the books that have convicted you or changed you. I always love reading books that just really dig themselves into my heart and faith and challenge me and grow me for the better. That was my list. I highly recommend all of these books. I will list them by title in the description if you want to look them up for yourself. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, go ahead and give it a like, and if you want to see more content like this, go ahead and subscribe, and I will see you Friday for whatever video that is. Until then, bye!